So a platform that favors industry artists, playlists royalty-free music to avoid paying artists, does little to nothing about fake streams that harms real artists, makes less money for artists than before, algorithmically addicts listeners to sell their data, and you're asking if this company is evil. Isn't that a no-brainer? Okay, whoa, hold on. We haven't gotten there yet. Hello, welcome to this video, and today we're going to be addressing the question, is Spotify evil? You might have seen other videos covering this topic, such as... But one thing present in all of these videos is that they are only concerned with what Spotify is doing wrong. I want to air out all the dirty laundry of Spotify, but also account for the clean laundry and determine whether this company deserves to rot at the stake or have a nice steak for being a good boy. Who's that good boy? But regardless, I figured I'd start with what I don't like about Spotify. There is little to no way for new artists to get discovered on Spotify. See, Spotify's platform was originally a search engine, where you looked up whatever song you wanted to hear, and maybe you added it to a playlist and listened to it later. This, although still favoring industry artists who are much more likely to be looked up, was unbiased as a system. But now, through playlists and home screens, Spotify has become a music recommendation software as much as a music listening software. This isn't evil as a concept, but there is now room for criticism here because they have decided to choose what their listeners are going to listen to. So, is there anything wrong with their algorithms? Spotify's algorithm is named BART, which stands for Bandits for Recommendations as Treatments, which not only makes no sense on its own, but there is no A.
IBM stands for International Business Machines.
Get the fuck out of here.
BART uses three models to recommend music: raw audio analyzation, natural language processing, and collaborative filtering. Raw audio analyzation identifies the audio's mood. Basically, it can analyze a waveform and figure out the genre of the music. Natural language processing, it takes the lyrics and figures out what kind of topics are being covered in the song. Collaborative filtering takes the other two models and uses it to compare new music to the music that the listeners already listened to, therefore finding new tracks. Now, the big problem with this algorithm that has been documented and studied is the general problem of sameness. See, notice how I didn't need to use some fancy word like post-indoctrinated fascist gigantic boobism. Both research and opinion pieces have documented this sameness effect. Basically, as algorithmic consumption increases, the diversity of consumption decreases. Now, to tie this back to the original point, new artists, and more specifically new genres, are less discovered, because the algorithm is suggesting you sameness, the sameness of a person who grew up listening to the radio. In other words, the algorithm is just giving more power to the already powerful. Those are my problems with the user end of Spotify. But now, let's take a look at the back end. So Spotify and its artists make money from what's called a revenue pool. Basically, all the money that Spotify makes from subscriptions and advertisements is thrown into a pot. First, Spotify takes 35% of this pot, and then the rest is divided amongst the artists. Now, theoretically, the revenue and the amount of streams would scale together. This would keep the pay per stream as a constant, but it hasn't happened. In 2014, you would have made 0.005 cents per stream, whereas in 2020, you would have made about 0.004. That's a 20% decrease in revenue. Spotify didn't change their revenue distribution, so what changed? Well, the main theory for this is dilution of the artist pool with fake streams. Through the use of botnets and phone farms, labels or individuals can create fake streams which would dilute the amount of pay for real artists. Spotify seems to do little to nothing to combat this, and it's probably because they still get paid the same 35% no matter how many fake streams there are. So I've outlined some pretty big problems with Spotify, but let's try to see the other side. So one claim that people make is that Spotify makes less money for artists than before. And this is sort of true. Taylor Swift, Bob Dylan, Metallica, Pink Floyd, they all pulled their music from Spotify because it made them less money. The rise of Spotify plummeted CD sales, so these artists took a stand against evil Spotify, who came around and made these deals with the record labels to short out the artist. But another way to see this is that while these artists who have signed million-dollar deals are making less money, there are millions of independent artists who can now make a living off of music. These artists who sold their masters to the music industry in exchange for what was the necessary infrastructure of CD sales, radio plays, and show booking were harmed by the swap to streaming. And this was because of these fuzzy contracts that never knew that streaming services would be a thing. But now, you don't need to sell your masters to make a living. You can own your own music, which is pretty crazy now for the music industry. That infrastructure is available for everyone to go and upload songs onto Spotify. Hell, I even have songs up on Spotify. I think this is a good transition into our last section, which is the good side of Spotify. Perspective is extremely important, so here's another one. Before Spotify, we had a problem of piracy, and nobody made money off of piracy, except, the resellers who paid nothing to the artists. But even before piracy, we had record labels, and I don't think I need to explain that record labels were bad. Spotify does take 35% of the pool of money, but it still barely makes them a profit. The music industry needed to change coming into the internet era, and now with plenty of competitors, the music streaming market has become a pretty healthy competition. Music streaming is more favorable to independent artists. A good piece of evidence for this is
in the types of deals that labels are starting to offer the artists in the artist's favor, where the label comes to the artist and says, I know historically we would take 85%, but we're not gonna do that for you because you're so valuable and you've obviously proven that you can create a career all on your own.
Because of the infrastructure and TikTok virality, the record labels sometimes have to beg independent artists to sign. Now, granted, becoming a TikTok star takes luck and a new kind of selling yourself. This time, instead of your masters, it's your dignity. But there is no denying that more and more random successes and less industry plants have been arising. I still love Olivia Rodrigo's music, but come on, she literally came from a Disney Another show. thing you can take a different perspective on is the algorithm itself. Yes, a platform should care about its artists, but at the end of the day, the users are the ones that's paying. And if the users want to hear the same songs, then damn it, they will hear the same songs. Now, there are definitely arguments for what is a long-term sustainable plan versus a short-term sustainable plan, and how capitalism always goes for the short. Basically, playing the same music over and over again might get you more streams in the beginning, but when you can only hear the same songs over and over again, eventually you're like, okay, maybe I'll try a different platform. But the algorithm is trying to appease users and not artists. And I think changing that is kind of an unrealistic ask for a music streaming platform.
Spotify's AI algorithms work to addict you to the app for as long as possible. This is done through Discover Weekly, Release Radar, and daily mixes.
Okay, thank you all for coming. Now, let's just start off by going around and saying our addictions. I'm addicted to crack. I'm addicted to porn. I'm addicted to alcohol. I'm addicted to the Daily Mix 5. Oh! Look, obviously Spotify isn't perfect. We've aired out that dirty laundry already, and it is definitely stinky. But the question, is Spotify evil, is completely based on perspective. So, for one, I don't want to make that decision for you. Now, this might be kind of unsatisfying for some people, but I want to hear from you. Based on the information that I've given, which is to the best of my ability, which is to the best of my ability, unbiased. But based on that information, I want to see what you think. Do you think that they're a evil corporation that steals millions of dollars from artists and goes under the public eye about it? Or do you think that they're pretty upfront with what they do, and maybe they have a couple issues here and there, but overall they've provided a new infrastructure for artists that's overall been a net positive?